Hi everyone, I'm Joseph from Namsa University and welcome back to my online class. This class is the beauty industry trends and management. So we will run about the beauty industry trends and management. Especially today we are going to run about the trends. So this is a table of contents for today's lesson, today's class. Today we are studying about the definition of trend. So we are going to run about the micro trend and macro trend and mega trend. So please remember about the definition of micro trend and macro trend and mega trend. And second time we will learn about the trends versus and fad. So we are concentrating on the difference between the trend and fad. And the last classes we are studying about the history of K-beauty. This class's name is the Beauty Industry Trends and Management. So we will going to run about the history of K-beauty because we are focusing on the beauty industry marketing, especially the K-beauty. So last classes, we are going to run about the history of K-beauty, especially early, the early, the early time in K-beauties. Okay, please remember about this table of contents and let's get started with these classes. So the first time we will run about the definition of trend. The first is micro trend and the second is macro trend and lastly the mega trends. So at this time we will focus on the definition of the trends. Okay, let's get move on to the next slide. The definition of trend. The A trend refers to a general direction in which something is developing and changing or behaving over time. So trend is a general direction, and the trend is not a narrow direction and narrow flow, but trend is a general direction in which something is developing and changing and behaving over time. It describes the prevailing movement of data and culture or events, encompassing everything from financial market paths to popular cultural fashions. The meaning of a trend breaks down into three everyday contexts. The first is the general direction. Please remember about general direction, a long-term shift or movement in a certain way, such as trend toward remote work, this is remote work or rising global temperature. So please remember about the general direction. This is a long term period. It has a long term period. And second is popularity. The popularity is also very important. What is currently popular and hip or in style? So this often applies to fashion and music or internet cultures. For example, the social media hashtag trending online. So popularity is also a very important character of a trend. And and a third is the data and market. A district and measurable pattern in numbers or finance, such as an upward or downward trend in a company's stock price or a sales. So data and market also is very important thing in definition of trend. So please remember the three contexts. The first is the a general direction, and the second is popularity, and third is data and market. This time we will learn about the micro trend, and before we have studied about the trend, and this time we will study about the microtrend. A microtrend is a niche or industry specific consumer behavior trend, which is mass market ready and actionable. With a shorter lifespan, a micro trends usually filter down from a macro trend and provide opportunity for innovators, designers, and marketers to tap into this emerging consumer mindset. The key characteristic of the micro trend is the first is fleeting lifespan. They burn out quickly, and as algorithmic content changes and consumers seek a newness. So the first characteristic of microtrend is a fleeting lifespan. And second is hyper-specific niche. They focus on exact, authentic, rather than a broad industry changes. So hyper-specific niche, and they have a net a narrow thing. So hyper-specific niche is also is very important characteristic of a micro trend, and social media driven is the last characteristic. The social media driven is that they are born and popularizes and abundant through a short form video platform. So this microtrend is made by the social platform, especially short form video platforms. So the definition of micro trend is a niche or industry specific consumer behavior and trend, which is mass market ready and actionable. So please remember about the definition of micro trend and the key characteristic of micro trend. And next is a macro trend. Macro trend is a more is bigger concept than the micro trend. So macro trend is a large scale and long term shift in societal behavior, technology, or the economy that typically unfolds over years or decades. It acts as a big picture, a guiding force that influences entire industries, drive market conditions, and shape a long-term consumer habits. So the definition of microtrend is a large-scale and long-term shift in a social behavior, technology, or the economy that typically unfolds over years or decades. And next is the key characteristic of uh, macrotrend is the four things. The first is the long lifespan. Uh, Please remember about microtrend. Microtrend is a fleeting lifespan, but the macro trend is a long lifespan. So the key characteristic of macro trend is long lifespan. It means they span anywhere from two to over 10 years, and occasionally even decades. So it has the micro trend has a long lifespan. And second is the broad impact. The macro trend has a broad impact. they affect multiple industries rather than being limited to a single niche or market. So a broad impact also very important characteristic of a macro trend. And consumer driven, it's very important. The consumer driven is they reflect fundamental changes in how people think and live and consume. So co- consumer driven and consumer behavior is a very important part of a macro trend. And lastly, business utility. They are the foundation. They are the foundation of strategic planning, risk analysis, and corporate forecasting. So, business utility is very important characteristic of macro trend. So please remember about this, the definition of macro trend and the key characteristic of macro trend. The definition of macro trend is a large scale a long-term shift in social behavior, technology, or the economy that typically unfolds over years or decades. And key characteristic is the fourth thing. The first is long lifespan, and next is broad impact, and next is consumer-driven data and consumer-driven purpose and the business utility. Okay, next we are going to run about the megatrend. A megatrend. We studied about the first and microtrend, and next we studied the macrotrend, and lastly we will run about the megatrend. So definition of megatrend is a massive and transformative and global shift in behavior, technology, or society that impacts economies, industries, and individuals. These mega level these mega level forces are defined by their long term natural, so typically spanning a minimum of 15 years or more, and their widespread and pervasive influence across the world. So please remember about this that definition of megatrend. The definition of megatrend is massive and transformative and growth shift in behavior or technology over society that impact economy, industries, and individuals. So the next is the key characteristic of megatrend. The first is the global scope. The second is the long duration, and uh, third is intersect intersecting drivers. The first key characteristic of megatrend is the global scope. It's it's bigger than the uh, macro trend. So global scope is it affects populations and markets worldwide and transcending regional boundaries. So uh, a megatrend's key characteristic is global scope. And next is long duration. It has a very long duration. It spans a decades or more, a minimum 10 years, rather than being a temporary fad or short-term shift. And the last one is intersecting intersecting and drivers. It is usually formed by the a collision of several a smaller a social economy and technological or environmental trend. So this three thing is a key characteristic of megatrend. So please remember about this megatrend is definition and key characteristics. Okay, we studied about the micro trend and the first the trend the simply the trend, and next is micro trend, and the next is macro trend and mega trend. And this time we will learn about the mega and macro trend versus micro trend. So the we are concentrating on the difference of the mega and micro trends and mega macro trends and micro trends. So understanding the scale of a trend is critical for business strategies and long-term planning. The spectrum can be broken down into three main levels. So the first is megatrend. The megatrend is broad and overarching global changes. So this is example. So a globalization or a climate changes. This is a mega trend, and a macro trend. Macro trend is a tangible and cross industry behavior and market shift driven by mega trend. For example, the global transition towards uh, sustainability, or a remote work, and the microtrend is a very niche and short-term trend or fad directly linked to macrotrend. For example, the rise of specific eco-friendly fashion fabric or subscription meal prep boxes. This is a microtrend. So the megatrend is biggest concept, and then the macro trend is more smaller is smaller concept, and then the micro trend is our most small concept in the uh, in these trends. So the mega trend is broad and the biggest concept, and then macro trend and micro trend. So please remember about this, a difference of micro trend and macro trend and mega trend. Okay, next, uh, we are studying about trend versus fad. This is also very important because trend and fad is very confusing concept, and has a confusing meaning. So we are concentrating on the difference of trends and fad. At this time, we will read about the trend or fad, how to tell the differences. The Garrick, the written by the Garrick articles. So uh, we we will read about this article written by the Garrick. So uh, please remember about the difference about the fad and trend. Before we read this article, please remember about we have already studied the definition of trend and definition of micro trend and definition of macro trend and definition of mega trend, because uh, uh, we are reading this article, but without understanding about the definition of a trend, it is very difficult to understand this article. So please remember about definition about the trend before we have studied already. Okay, let's get started with a reading about the article written by the Gary. Okay, let's get started. Is it a trend or fad? The writer uh, have a question about the trend or fad. I know you might think they're the same thing, but trust me, they are not. this is the trend and the fad is very different. While both can be popular in the short term, trends have staying power, while fads are often fleeting, and trends have staying power. So trends have uh, a long term period, but the fad is very short term. Uh, so it's important to make a distinction. It's important to make a distinction. In this article, uh, I will dive into the key differences between trends and fad for business. You will learn how to identify trends that can provide long-term growth opportunity and avoid the fact that could lead to short-term gain but little sustainable impact. Let's get started. This is a beginning of this article, and next is the our main our main topic in this articles. The first is a trend. Trend is a general direction or pattern of change in the market or industry practices. This meaning is also we have studied before. Trends can emerge from various kind of change, such as technological shift or new cultural norms. If you are to identify and leverage trend, you can gain a clear competitive advantage. That's because you can shape your strategy around the coming shift by launching the right product or service, for example. So this time we will focus on the example of trend. So this slide is also uh, tells about the definition of trend. Uh, what we have already studied. A trend is a general direction or pattern of change in the market or industry of practices. Okay, let's get into the example of trend. The first example of trend is online shopping. Since the 1990s, we've seen a steady growth of consumers buying goods and service online. So online shopping is a very good example of a trend. The companies that jump on this trend only have been able to capitalizes on it over time. Uh, this example is Amazon and Asus. Those that neglected the trend were left behind. So uh, this example is Debenhams and Top Shops and Virgin Megastore. Honestly, because honestly, the Debenhams, Topshop, and Virgin Megastore, uh, I don't know about this. I don't know about these companies because this company uh, uh, have neglected the trends, especially online shopping trends. So I can, I can, I couldn't heard about this name of the companies, but I know about the U.S. Amazon and Asus because Amazon and Asus uh, focus on this trend, online shopping trend. So they focus on the online shopping trend and develop the strategies about the focusing on the online shopping trend. So Amazon is the number one company in US in retail market, retail industry. So this is a very important example of a trend. So the first good example of trend is online shopping. So please look at this graph. The estimated annual U.S. retail trade sale total and emerged e-commerce. So the the estimated annual U.S. retail trade scale total and e-commerce have oh sorry uh the annual U.S. retail trade and sales total the e-commerces uh, have been having growths having going uh, having having increased steadily about uh, from 1990s uh, to 2020s. So this is a very good example of trend. Okay, this time we have studied about trends, the definition of trends and the difference about the micro trend and macro trend and mega trends, and we are reading and lastly we are reading about the trends versus fad, about the written by the Gary. So next time we will continue to read about this article, trend versus fad. Thank you for attending this online classes, and this is the this is the end of this class. So thank you for attending this class and see you next classes. Bye.